NXT reclaims the crown, a show that was all gas. March the 11th, 2024, NXT Roadblock. Let's get it. Excellent show. Nothing bad. Except there was about 90 seconds of Shawn Spears, but even that couldn't bring me down. Excellent show from top to bottom. Everything worked out the way that it should have. So let's get into the main event. Stephanie Vaquer wins the NXT Women's title in the champion versus champion match versus Julia. Now, these two girls apparently had a match before that people thought was whack. They thought it was terrible, and they were sort of giggling and snickering behind the NXT fans' back, saying, oh, this match wasn't going to be good. They don't have good chemistry. They can't work together. It was maybe a year or two ago. I haven't actually seen the whole match myself, but there was like a clip of them not being very good. And there was some botches here too. But I think that just comes from Julia, you know? Julia has not had the smoothest transition in WWE. Stephanie Vaquer might be one of the best females in the world. Like, legit. She might be top 5, top 10. Like, right now. Julia, she's good. She's got aura. And she's got a good character. But in the ring, she's a little on the rough side. She still needs some time to develop. So, a lot of people are saying, like, Julia lost this match. She should go to the main roster now. It's just too early. She ain't even she ain't been in NXT a year yet. No, give her some time. If anything, I expect Stephanie Vaquer is going to let go of the North American title, and then Julia should just win that and run with that for a while. So basically, like, they switched belts. So if you want to bring Julia to the main roster, I wouldn't do it, mainly because then you leave a hole in this roster that is unnecessary. There's no immediate future in which Julia is necessary on Raw or SmackDown. She can stay right where she is. Just do a story with her where she got to work her way back to the top. You know, this is the right way to go. Now, in terms of the match, Julia did Stephanie Vaquer's little head dribble thing. It was during the commercial break. But in my head, I had Booker T going, because everybody does, right? So then Stephanie Vaquer does it to Julia, and she's banging her head on the ring with and Booker T is and then as soon as Stephanie gets up, there is a very loud Booker T chant. It was excellent. Julia hits a top rope butterfly suplex, double underhook joint. Looked nasty. Looked like it hurt like hell. Julia countered a moonsault into an armbar and then converted that into a Rings of Saturn. Man, I mean, they was really killing it. The finish was kind of flat. And the fans didn't really buy into the false finishes. I think that part of the match kind of fell apart. Is when Julia hit one of her big moves, which was the knee strike, they call it Arrivederci. There was not a huge fan reaction for that. I think she had won a match with that thing too, so it's not like they didn't know that she could win with that move. It just felt like it was a little disjointed there. But, and then also I thought the finish was kind of flat, considering Julia took 2 finishers back to back without any sort of response. That's always a negative in my book. You know, I would rather have been a roll-up or something. But Stephanie hits her finisher back-to-back on Julia and pins her. Julia's left sitting on the ramp in disappointment, but she's happy for her friend. This has been, it was incredible. You know, really good match between these two. Obviously, I think people were expecting it to be a little bit better than it was. But it was nowhere near the stinker that I was told that it was going to be. So, it was good. I enjoyed it. Stephanie Vaquer deserves to be the main girl going into Stand and Deliver. It's going to be an interesting story to see what they do with Julia and Jordan Grace and Jada Parker. They got some cooks waiting. There's some stuff here that they got time to build, and they got 6 weeks till WrestleMania, so they got some time. But this might have been part one. They put the belt on Stephanie Vaquer, so I'm interested. And also, you got the Fallon Henley situation. Fallon Henley still is demanding her rematch for the North American title. So you got Jada Parker, who wants a shot at the NXT title. You got Fallon Henley, who wants a spot for the North American title. And then you got Julia, who's the former champion. You got some up-and-coming contenders. You got a lot going on here. And so it's going to get very, very interesting of what they decide to do. Of course, the precedent is that the North American title is going to be vacated. Because that's what happened when Keith Lee won both belts. He had to vacate one of the titles. And he ended up vacating the North American belt. So I'm guessing the same thing is going to happen here. And that's going to lead to some type of shabazzle. Maybe a 8-woman ladder match or something for the North American title. But it ought to be interesting. Ought to be interesting. Ought to be fun. Eddie Thorpe was calling himself the king of the underground. That, Trick Williams a pretty boy. He don't like getting hit. Earlier in the night, there was a vignette by Trick Williams showing him, doing the old Little Mac training. You're running on the side of the road, doing some push-ups, So as Eddie Thorpe is talking shit, and the crowd hates Eddie Thorpe. Hates him. Rightfully so. Because he's a bum, right? They hate this guy. And Trick Williams just attacks him from behind, kicks his ass. They're going to have a good match next week. I can expect. I just feel it in my bones. Hopefully that match doesn't suck. Because I'm very excited for this show. Hopefully next week doesn't turn into some booty butt cheeks thing with these two guys. But I'm going to put some faith in Trick Williams. I think this is going to be good. Okay. Sean Spears' group is called The Culling. Don't care. Let's move on. Javon Evans defeats Ethan Page in a street fight. Let me tell you this, Javon Evans kid. He's a phenom. All right? He does all the flips, all the jumps, but it's well timed. It's put into good places, and it doesn't take away from his selling, right? He still tells the physical story, even though he does all of these things. And he had a breakout match. To me, Ethan Page is a blank slate. I don't care about Ethan Page at all. So this was all Javon Evans for me. The fact that Ethan Page was dressed like Braun Strowman, that even couldn't take me away from this. But Javon Evans he took some damage. He got slammed on some twin open chairs that he had set up. He was going to jump off of them and do something, but Ethan Page countered it, pulled them down off the top rope onto the chairs, and then from immediately into a power slam through a table that was catacornered in the corner of the ring. Only a 2 count. Amazing flying lariat from Javon Evans. I mean, every time the guy gets in the air, he's walking the skies. I mean, this guy is incredible. He did a Van Daminator, but it was his flip kick, but it was done while Ethan Page was holding a chair. That's the only problem I really had is that, the Van Daminator, you kick a chair into a guy's face. That's usually a pretty good setup for a finish. They did that in about, the middle of this match. So I kind of got to criticize that. Then they did the table spot, which was tremendous. It was incredible. Ethan Page is standing on the ring apron. There's a table set, regular table, set up between the desk and the ring apron. Javon Evans leaps over the top rope, grabs Ethan Page by the head, and cutters him like an RKO through that table onto the floor. That was tremendous. That was a tremendous spot. It's hard to say what the highest spot of the match is. For some people, it's going to be that. For me, it was that leap over the top rope that happened a little while later, where he tackled Ethan Page and they both went over the announce desk. That was clean. It made sense. Oh, that was crazy. That was super crazy. Ethan Page, again, I couldn't tell you what else he did in this match after he power slammed Javon Evans through a table, because it was all Javon Evans. He was just fully on. He was locked in, as they say, fully loaded. Javon Evans wins the match with a springboard cutter. There was a chair wrapped around the chin of Ethan Page, like the chair was on his head. Just great finish, poetic finish considering how their storyline started. Just excellent stuff here. Javon Evans, man, I'm going to side with Brian Alvarez and Meltzer and all of those guys who say, look, I know he's very young. You know, he might be too young for you to put the crown on, but you need to get him in the conversation. He needs to get into the conversation. Like, they had a really good feud here. Hopefully it's over. And Javon Evans, well, it's definitely over because Javon Evans is now going to end up mixed in with these Shield Retribution guys. We'll talk about that in a second. But there's no ceiling for this guy. And that would be a great nickname for him, No Ceilings. So this would be phenomenal. This guy is... all he needs to do is work on his character. Like, he needs some character work. Like a good gimmick. And he's ready. He's ready to go. But in the ring, next level. Just incredible. After the match, he gets jumped by the 4 masked goons who, I guess they went on hiatus. They went on vacation. They went and took some pictures or something. They disappeared for like 2 weeks. And now here they are. They attacked Javon Evans and beat him up. Don't know why. I don't think we'll get an answer to that question anytime soon. But there is that. So, some guy named Shaquan Sugars. Everybody was very excited about him. I don't know anything about him. So, we'll see. But these guys, I would have liked to have some development on them so far, considering it's been over a month since these guys were debuted. But I get it. They have had other storylines to wrap up and other things to do, so they kind of put it on the back burner. But now we got to really start getting some stuff started here. I know Deion Lennox is one of them, but I don't remember Deion Lennox and Javon Evans having a problem. Like, why would they beat him up? But I guess we'll see. Maybe they're going to build like an 8-man tag match for Stand and Deliver. That's going to feature Javon Evans, maybe leading one team. That could be interesting, or that could be something they do for NXT TV. All right, so Ricky Starks, he challenged Ridge Holland for next week, and Ava agreed. Ethan Page called him an outsider and said NXT doesn't like outsiders. I'm not thrilled at all about the idea of Ricky Starks and Ethan Page having a feud. I think that's in Ricky Starks' way. If you're gonna debut Ricky Starks and then his first match was Wes Lee, well, one of his first matches, and then the second is Ridge Holland, and the third is Ethan Page, you're not doing him no favors. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're really not helping him. You putting him in there with guys like that. Like, he should have had a longer feud with Wes Lee. I know Wes Lee's been doing a lot of stuff with the TNA crossover, but maybe that should have continued rather than putting him in there with certified bums like Ridge Holland and Ethan Page. I'm sorry. Hate to break it to you, I just don't like those guys. Zarya takes Sol Ruca to the Rage Room so they can get some aggression, because Sol Ruca is going to wrestle for the United States Championship next week versus Chelsea Green. I saw this coming, but it ought to be really good anyway. Clearly, it's just going to be Chelsea Green getting her win back. That would be fine, I suppose, if Chelsea didn't always lose. If Chelsea had some momentum, I wouldn't feel so bad about it. But Sol Ruca has been mostly in a tag now. They're still building her tag team with Zarya, even though I don't know why. Why is Zarya in a tag team? Why couldn't you have put Sol Ruca in a tag team with somebody else? But I guess they wanted to have one of those Kane and X-Pac type of tag teams, where there's a bigger power-based wrestler than a smaller, lighter, more agile wrestler. But the Rage Room looks fun. They're in there smashing vases and glasses, and they're wearing matching Zubaz pants, and I'm like, are they going on a date? I mean, what is this? But it looks fun. It all looks very fun and entertaining, I guess. This next match, though, next level. I gotta give Moose credit. He was really good here. Oba Femi defeats Moose. Oba Femi is met by The Undertaker before his match. Undertaker says that he was impressed by Oba Femi. He wants Oba Femi to go out and defend the yard. And these two guys went out there and if Undertaker versus Batista was one of those follow that kind of performances, that's what these guys did. Because most of the time, if you're the NXT champion, you're the top guy in the promotion, you should be the main event. But because the outcome to this match was so obvious, they put it on third. But then when they actually got done with this match, holy shit. You were looking at this saying, this should have been the main event. This was a top level horse fight. Moose, he has not been fully vindicated from bumdom. Alright? But he almost broke free. He had the keys in his hands, and it's very close. He's got a ladder match with Jeff Hardy this weekend. If he manages to have a good match there, maybe I'll unlock the cage and I won't call him a bum anymore. But I also don't like the fact that he's barefaced. I'm not a big fan of that. But these guys went out there and they did everything. They were tremendous. Both of them showed out. Had some good psychology to their stuff. Oba Femi hits his finisher actually early in the match, and Moose just rolled out of the ring. The Moose tries to go for a superplex combo, only for Oba Femi to counter it into a suplex of his own. Then the absolute best spot for me, Oba Femi just gorilla pressed Moose and threw him to the floor. Like, that's crazy. Because Moose is a huge fucking guy. Moose is a big dude. And Oba Femi lifted him up and just threw him over the top rope to the floor. That was crazy. Crazy. Later on, Moose catches Oba Femi and rock bottoms him through the announce desk. Then I was like, holy shit. Then he hit him with a spear. Like, no. Like, it's rare that I'm bought in like that. It's rare that I'm hooked like that. I truly believed at this point that Moose might win. And I've said this again and again. The worst thing an obvious match can do is not show you that anybody could win. When Moose put him through that table, put Oba Femi through the table, and then followed it up with a spear, I truly believed Moose might win. I believed it. I bought in. Thank God I was wrong. Thank God I was wrong, Daddy. Oba Femi wins with a fall from grace powerbomb. This was easily the best Moose match I've ever seen, and he's wrestled Kenny Omega. And this is the best Moose match I've ever seen. He's wrestled Dolph Ziggler. This is still the best Moose match I've ever seen. And this is probably the best Oba Femi match I've ever seen. This is the best match for both guys. It was excellent. Much better than I expected it to be. Can't speak enough about it. Clearly, I'll say it again. If Oba Femi does not get to be the WWE champion within 3 years of being on the main roster, I will call Triple H a racist personally. There is no excuse. Not one excuse, period, for Oba Femi to not get pushed. He can work. He's a giant. He can talk. He's got aura. He's got charisma. He's got everything. He's got everything. And he's not, as much as they might want him to be like a Brock Lesnar or even a Lashley, he's more dynamic than those guys. Because Brock and Lashley, they were kind of weak in the personality department. But Oba has a personality, and he shows it. And he actually doesn't mind talking. He's confident talking. There's just no excuse for why this guy shouldn't be WWE champion. And the people are already behind him. The people are already with it, and he is as over when at the TNA tapings as he is in NXT. So I don't see how he wouldn't get on the main roster unless Triple H drops the ball completely, or Oba Femi decides to break his neck or his leg or something. Why this guy wouldn't be a top superstar on the main roster for years to come? I can see Triple H putting the boots to Trick Williams. There's no excuse when it comes to Oba Femi. All right. Jordynne Grace defeats Roxanne Perez. This was a sleeper match. They had a good match here. Roxanne Perez, of course, has spent some time on Raw. And there was a little jokey joke about from Bayley, like, oh, she just ran back to NXT, because we all thought that Roxanne Perez was being called up. That's why she was in the Elimination Chamber and all that. Turns out, no, she's back. So we don't know if she's back just to give Jordynne Grace her win back, and then she's going back to Raw, or what. We have no idea. But she's here, and her and Jordynne Grace had a very solid match. Roxanne Perez targeted the legs. She actually kicked Jordynne Grace's knee into the ring steps. Jordynne Grace does a package sit-out powerbomb, which was really cool. And then won the match with the Juggernaut driver. So then that was really good. Solid match. Clearly the idea is going to be that they've been telling the story between Jordynne Grace, is that she's been standing between Julia and Stephanie Vaquer. Kind of like choose your path, but now there's only one path. So that now we see the storyline developing, that Jordynne Grace had to make a choice before, but now there's no choice. She's got to wrestle Stephanie Vaquer. So I'm going to be very interested in seeing how they choose to do that. But this was one of the matches that it was kind of a sleeper, where it was a good match, but in comparison to some of the other stuff on this show, it was actually on the weaker side. And that's when you look at things relatively. If this was on a regular episode of NXT, it'd probably be the best match on the show. But considering they decided to do like a pay-per-view level show, this was probably like the fourth best match on the show. Mickie James makes an appearance after to show some goodwill, I suppose. She's still promoting the LFG show, Legends of Future Grace, even though she's been removed from the show, apparently for season 2. But they're still promoting the show. That's why Undertaker was on the show too. On this show, rather, on NXT. She did a segment with Jada Parker, where they talked about taking opportunities and not waiting for them. And Mickie James really gassed her up something great, Thinks that she deserves to be at the top, telling her to go out there and get that opportunity. Jada Parker's like, yeah, I need to learn from you. I was like, oh shit, okay. We need to keep Mickie James in NXT for a little while. It would be great if she was like the general manager of NXT. That would be excellent, because her husband is the general manager of SmackDown, right? So it would make sense, and she's a legend, and people would, love to see her every week, and you could tease her having matches and stuff like this, but we're stuck with Dixie Kong being the goddamn general manager of NXT. Whatever. It don't matter, man. But I'm glad to see Mickie getting some love. I hate that she's getting removed from that show, and the idea that Undertaker is having her removed, even though I don't think that's exactly what happened, but that's the narrative that's been floated around, is that he pulled some strings to get Mickie removed, but I don't think so. The first match on the show, the Hardys defeat Fraxiom. Hell of a tag team match here. The Hardys are old, and I saw Matt's bald spot, and I was like, oh my God. I remember when he barely had facial hair, and now he's got a bald spot. He's got a bald spot and 5 kids. He still also moves like RoboCop. I don't get it. But, sheesh. They had a really good match. I mean, they look like giants next to Fraxiom. Fraxiom are too damn small. They're very tiny. Extremely tiny guys. They hit the Phoenix Splash after the Spanish Fly, but Matt ended up breaking up the pin. There's a mixed communication. Did I say mixed communication? Yeah, mixed communication. Who cares? After Axiom does a flying drop kick onto Nathan Frazer, it was the old "I'm going to hold him for you," which never works out in wrestling. "I'm going to hold him for you" barely ever works in wrestling. It's like when you see it in action movies. "I'm going to hold this guy. You take a free shot at him, boss." It's almost guaranteed he's going to get away, right? So he ends up drop kicking Nathan Frazer, and that leads to the Swanton Bomb. The Hardys win. This match was obvious. They did not get me to legitimately believe that Axiom and Nathan Frazer could win. Even though Axiom and Nathan Frazer hit their finish, I was not fully sold that they would beat the Hardys. So this was pretty obvious, but it was a great start to the show. The Hardys melted the building. The building looked phenomenal, by the way. The MSG Theater, it looked packed. The crowd was with it all night. It was excellent. So, it was fantastic. According to WrestleTix, there's a little under 5,000 people in the building as of earlier in the day. So, 4,723. It was lit well. It looked like a lot more people than 4,000. It was a beautiful venue. The week leading into the show was Stephanie Vaquer. She was getting a lot of heat from the Hispanic audience for what she said about CMLL. What did she say about CMLL, actually? She was talking about the differences between wrestling in Mexico and wrestling in WWE. And she basically says that nobody really helps you in Mexico, that you're alone. You have to go in and make it work on your own. And a lot of people were very upset with her, which is, this is her experience in CMLL. And people were saying like how, when she got beat up by her boyfriend, CMLL was on her side, which is not what she's talking about. A lot of folks are very upset because this was compared to AEW, because, Jade Cargill says something similar about AEW, about, nobody really helping each other. But this is her experience. I don't know what happened in CMLL. I have no idea. But Stephanie Vaquer likes the team effort of NXT, and she thinks it's better than being in CMLL or whatever. And now everybody's like, she's burned that bridge. She can never come back. I'm like, man, she's like 28 or something like that. She ain't coming back. If she ever comes back, it's got to be a pretty good reason. And everybody's like, oh, she's going to get fired because WWE fires everyone. It's like everybody except fucking Natalya. She spent there for 18 years. If Stephanie Vaquer can manage to not get into a fight or get arrested for robbery or something like that, she's going to be fine. Okay? She's going to be fine. She's not going to get fired for no good reason. Especially since Triple H is a big fan of work rate and Stephanie Vaquer is a work rater. That's one thing she did learn in Mexico is she learned the work ethic. So she's going to be fine. She's more than likely never coming back to Mexico. And even if she did get fired from WWE, she could always go to AAA, or she could always go to TNA or over to Japan or whatever. I hate to break it to you, and I know that it kind of gets annoying to people because they say, that why would you burn that bridge? Why you have to talk down about the company that you left to discuss the company that you're in? But she was asked what the differences were, essentially. And it's not like she just decided she was going to, destroy CMLL. And then what she said wasn't even all that bad, because it sounds like an indie show where you're expected to know what to do when you show up and you have to figure it out. And they don't give you a lot of directions. Because WWE, and this is where the independent contractor thing kind of comes in, because people say WWE has too much control over the wrestlers. What they do is they give a lot of directions. What they're expecting, what they're looking for, and all that kind of stuff. And other indie promotions and stuff like this, they don't get a lot of that. You're left to your own devices to tell whatever kind of story you want to tell. And sometimes that works out, sometimes it don't. And she was, thankfully in a position where it worked out for her more often than not. But she is where she wants to be now. She's young enough to enjoy this. She said before that she was given a choice between main roster and NXT, and she chose NXT because she wanted to learn English. So she's been doing some really good stuff here in WWE so far. She's super over. Far more over than I would have thought, considering her profile was not that high when she got signed. WWE actually raised her profile quite a bit. I know people think that it was AEW or whatever, but WWE takes these guys and jacks them up. Most people couldn't have picked Stephanie Vecchio out of a lineup, even after the match with Mercedes. And now she is positioned, and the presentation is such that she might be one of the best female wrestlers, period. And a lot of that is WWE elevating her, giving her a spotlight, giving her an opportunity, you know? And AEW can give you a platform. Hey, we want you to wrestle Mercedes Moné on this big show here, which is fine. But you're talking about network television in the United States for not even a year yet. And her profile has increased 2-3 times more than it was previously. I mean, she's very special. She's a very special young talent. And you know what? Same thing for Javon Evans. Same thing for Oba Femi. NXT really is building the future. Very special product here we got. Let me know what you guys think about this show. NXT Roadblock is one of my favorite shows that I've seen in a really long time. Can't say enough good things about it, but don't want to be too long-winded. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.